Today's episode is brought to you by Adorama. ADORAMADOTCOM now sells all manner of audio gear, including headphones, speakers, and amplifiers, in addition to the cameras and video products they are known for. Check out all their audiophile wares at ADORAMA.com. The Occasional Podcast. Special co-host, Bryan Beasley.
Are you guys sick of me yet? Put that in the comments section.
Feel free to leave comments anywhere. We'll be on Facebook. Also, good point.
Oh, you're welcome.
We have a Facebook page now.
Boom. It's about time. I mean, what is it, 2008? Let's do this already.
Yeah. Just as the kids are leaving Facebook, we're entering
We nailed it.
So you can leave us comments there. You can leave us comments on Part-Time Audiophile. We'll see those too. Any criticisms, pile them on.
That's right.
I love all your input. I don't discriminate. So today's episode, Dave and Carol Clark from Positive Feedback Magazine. They also have online presence, and they are one of the nicest people I've ever met in audio. I'd like to have those people on my show. I don't know. They're teachers professionally for years and years, recently retired.
That's a great name for their company. I got to tell you, I love that Positive Feedback. That's good.
So they're just like I like having them on. I like talking to them. I'd be honest, I like hanging out with them at the shows. I see them. It's like when I enter the bar, they're always like having a beer mid-afternoon. No, that's an exaggeration. But they're always sitting down for dinner. I'm the one drinking the beer. And I enter the room, and there's like a ray of light coming through the skylight that perfectly lights both of them. And like a blue bird just flies in and sits down on each of their shoulders.
Tweet.
And then takes off as I approach. And then a dark raven sits on mine and slowly pecks at my brain through my ear.
It's your beard.
Yeah, my beard.
Takes out breadcrumbs from your beard.
I feel. By the way, did you see that viral video of the girl? There's like a tiny little girl, and her mother is feeding the birds. You didn't see that one?
No, what happened?
And so a little girl sitting on her mother's lap, and they're in the park feeding the birds bread, and a bird flies in and just like sits right on the mom's lap, and the little girl grabs the bird by the throat.
Damn.
Pulls it in, takes the bread out of its mouth, and starts eating it.
That's her bread.
But the way she grabbed it, it was just
Very
like, it was like
No
yanking
fear.
it around.
No fear.
Yeah.
That's children. That's children for you. My daughters are like that. They're hellions. It's very scary. My youngest daughter, Hazel, I feel like she might be a psychopath because when she pushes her older sister, she looks at you with zero empathy or surprise. It goes both ways. It's just like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm here. I'm small. I'm going to start pushing people around.
I feel like you told me a story once. Your other daughter comes home and Hazel just runs up and shoves her like, welcome home.
Yeah, I bring Layla, the oldest one, home from school, and Hazel comes running up and it looks like, oh, she's going to hug her. And no, it was just like a full body push. And Layla's just like, she pushed. Like, I don't, like, why? It's like, I don't know. She's crazy. Hazel's a crazy bitch. She'll cut you.
In my mind, it's like more like a drop kick where she like comes in flying feet first.
Yeah.
Maybe
these people are 1 and 3, by the way. Let's just clarify how old they are.
But by that he means he has 2 31-year-old daughters that still live at home.
Cannot get them out of the house. What we got to do? What else is going
on? Kevin Smith had a heart attack.
Yeah, I heard. He lived.
He has a podcast as well, and
he has several podcasts, doesn't he?
He's a talker.
He used to.
But I like him. He's made me laugh, and I met him, and he was nice. And as with Dave and Carol, I like nice people.
You do like nice people.
Some people will say this about LA. The people are really fake. They'll smile to your face, and then they'll turn around and talk smack,
like you're doing to me right now.
In my mind, but. At least they're fake to your face. What I don't like is like when people are just mean to you. You're like, well, it's more genuine, but that's not what I want. You can be nice to me and talk bad behind my back anytime you want.
All day.
As long as you're nice to me.
That's right.
That's all it takes. So Dave and Carol came up to the home studio to kind of share their story. They actually started the LA in Orange County audiophile group, which is absolutely massive these days. It's very large and a very kind of interesting group of folks, the audiophile group, and they were there at the beginning. Bees, you want to do it?
Here we go, Holmes.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. We have Dave and Carol Clark in from Positive Feedback. Thanks so much for showing up. How was the drive up here?
Typical LA. It's like we're racing down the freeway, and everybody's like, now it's stop and go. But, all things considered, it wasn't bad.
So Dave and Carol both take part in Positive Feedback. They have an online publication now, and they've been actually in the industry for quite some time. Do you guys remember exactly when you guys kicked it all off?
Well, we started the Audiophile Society. We called it the Greater South Bay Audiophile Society, which has now become the LA Orange County Audiophile Society.
Really? You guys are the founders
We
of the
founded
LA?
that about 19...
I think it was 1992.
Yeah. And that kind of grew out of frustration of me sitting at home like most guys and audio people into music and listening to stuff. And it's like, it'd be nice if there's other people like me that I could hang out with and do the same thing. And I was at Dave Weinhardt up in Studio City, not Studio City, wherever he is up in the Bel Air. And I'm talking to him about it, and he's like, oh, yeah, that'd be a great idea. You could do all this stuff. And so we met this couple down the street from us. They were selling a bunch of audio stuff in a garage sale. They just moved in and hit it off. They're our age and came up with this idea of starting this audiophile society. And Stereophile ran a free ad for us, came out Thanksgiving weekend, and we must have had 150 calls over 2 days of just, really, this is great, I want to do this, So then it just kind of took off from there.
For the listeners who don't know, who are in the Los Angeles area, the Los Angeles Orange County Society is a fairly large society. I think it's probably the biggest in the U.S.
I think they're claiming over 2,000 members and so on. I mean, we only grew to about 125, which was fine because, you have a meeting at your house, you try to do something at a dealer, and, that's enough people, but...
But wow, the influence in the Los Angeles area you guys have had is
we did that for a number of years, met a bunch of, good friends, and after Larry and Carrie Fisher, who helped found it with us, they moved back east, and prior to them leaving, we were putting out, a 16-page newsletter every month for the society and going to CES and doing all this stuff and, meeting everybody and kind of knowing everybody. And Carol and I took over that job, because she was, she worked for Yachting Magazine, and so she did layout for the magazine. So I learned how to do it. And after a few years, we said, enough of this, and decided to launch a magazine, and that was Audio Musings. And so we launched that and did well, and never made a dollar, but never lost a dollar. Uh-huh. And after doing that for several years, David and I decided to merge the two magazines, and Positive Feedback came online.
And what year was this?
About 12 years ago.
I guess I'm looking at Carol.
Yeah.
No.
She's better with dates.
It was in 2002.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. And, never looked back. I mean, doing the print was fun because, we'd come home, and I'm a full-time school teacher, and I'm trying to lay out, 60 pages of, magazine and get it to a printer and make sure the printer prints it the way we want. And, going in Tower Records, it's like, oh, there's our magazine. Oh, I'm going to move it in front of the stereophile. So oh, there's Task, put it behind us, But we were like selling like crazy in Japan. Big.
So what was that process like getting distribution? Because that feels like the big hump that a lot of people never get over.
We were basically just sold through Tower Records. That was
you had
it.
one deal with Tower Records.
We had a deal with Tower Records. They put us in a handful of stores, and it's fun because like what doesn't sell at the end of the month when you send the next one, they rip off the cover and send it back to you, so you can't resell it. Wow. So we would get a box of, here's the 5 that didn't sell at this store, and here's the 3 that didn't sell at that store, and these would come back every month, and of course you just throw them away.
But we also had a large subscription base.
Yeah.
Because I was in charge of circulation. So there was a man who worked at the post office near us who was an audiophile, and whenever he saw me come in, he'd say, "Oh, I'm closing down. Come on," because he wanted to talk audio with me while I was filling out paperwork for all the overseas subscriptions.
That's really cool.
But some of the early meetings we did with this group was Von Schweikert. We did his first launch of the VR4s, and he was kind of like building them out of his garage, and had a meeting at one of the members' home that lives in Lakewood, and Dave from Wireworld, David, can't think of his last name now.
I thought it was Saul's.
David Sauls, yeah. So he came to my house and launched his cables there. So, I mean, it was fun. We got to meet a lot of people as they were starting out, and they're still friends today.
So is there anything in particular about Los Angeles audiophiles in general that you've kind of seen either change or more how has the hobby kind of been reshaped over the time that you guys have been involved in this geographic area specifically?
I don't think it's changed really that much. I still think it's a lot of sad to say, because it's kind of the cliche of, the single guy who's 50 or 60, or he's married and his wife doesn't want to be a part of it, so it's a lonely venture for him. And I still see that to an extent. Mm-hmm. I think it's, as far as what people are after, I don't think that's changed. That first meeting we had way back when we started, it just cracked us up, because we went out to dinner. We said, okay, meeting starts at 6. And we got home from dinner. We thought, let's get home early, make sure everything's set up, because it's going to be at our house. And there's people parked out in front of our house half hour, 45 minutes before it started, just waiting. Oh. And I'm like, this doesn't bode well.
And for those who don't know, that's very un-LA.
Yeah. I mean, they'd driven like an hour, and they're sitting there in their car, like looking at their clocks. We didn't have cell phones back then. That wasn't around. But it cracked us up. It's like, okay. And a lot of these people stayed in society till even today. I believe some of them are still in it. They're just still there. It's a social thing. I think that's what we were looking for. I think that's what they were looking for, a social connection to other people that share the same interests.
Has there been any particular member you've met through that, or house or system you've been to in LA that was just like either totally unique or totally crazy or something unexpected?
Well, I guess I can talk about this guy because he did pass away a few years ago, but he invited us, myself and some of the other, for lack of a better word, principal people in the group, to his place to listen to his system. And when we got there, we knew he was retired military, so we're all like joking. It's like he's going to come up out of this pond with a knife in his mouth, and we go in, and it's like he lived in just a one-room place with his bed and speakers pointing at the bed and no chairs.
You mean like a studio apartment?
A studio apartment, wow. But it was small. And, we had a great time. He's a sweet guy. But it was just kind of like, those kind of things stick out. And I will say that we still have lasting friendships from, the group, especially the group that we launched the print magazine from. Never launch a business where you have 7 partners. Yeah, because then everybody's arguing about what to do and nothing ever really gets done. But when we walked away from Audio Musings to go with David into Positive Feedback, I invited all of our partners to join us. And they all write for us today, and they're still good friends, and we socialize, and a lot of them become like family. And, when we were doing audio musings, we actually got to know John Atkinson at Stereophile. And when Stereophile would have shows here, they'd give us a free booth. They wouldn't charge us, like in signage, and we could do our magazine. And I remember one year we're at the hotel, and I look over to our right, and it's TAS is in this booth next to us doing their thing, and we're doing our thing. And at that time, I was more of a administrator as opposed to a teacher at an elementary school, and so I'd hired a couple women from, out of college to be teachers and stuff, and they were really outgoing and friendly. And I said, would you like to come and work this booth? We'll pay you. And they showed up, kind of low-cut tops and everything. And we had people lined up at our booth like crazy, just like, oh, hey, how much for a subscription? We had raffles and prizes, but, it's a good time. And, hats off to Stereophile, because they've always been there to, help out other people. They have the same kind of mentality we do, and that we've always done, is it's not a zero sum. It's look, if I'm doing great, you're doing great, we're all doing great. It's not like I'm out here to put you out of business, and I'm out here to like corner the market. We want everybody to do well, which is why in Positive Feedback we have all these media partners, because if we can help other magazines get more circulation or readers that they don't have and we got, and now they're reading them, and vice versa, hey, it's better for everybody. One big family.
I agree. I totally agree with that. It's not everybody in industry is absolute like that, but it's always nice and refreshing to see it. And there are significant players in this field who have that exact attitude, and it's wonderful. Yeah. I think it's, when you're so small and so niche like we are, I think that the hobby itself could use more people. Growing the hobby as a whole, growing the impressions as a whole, is a really good direction when you're as small as we are. And,
right. But we're small in the scheme of things, but I don't think that hurts us necessarily, because we keep advertising and selling to the same core group, and we do attract people from the outside, primarily at last number of years through headphones, which has kind of taken off, and high-end audio through headphones and amplifiers and all the things that does. I still see the headphone market as a different group necessarily than the guys who are in the 2-channel stereo, which is different than the group that's in the home theater. There's probably crossovers. If you looked at it like a Venn diagram, you got where everybody's kind of in the center, but for the most part, I don't know if we need to grow. I mean, obviously everybody's like, we want more business, we want more sales, we want more of this and that, and I get that. But on the other hand, you should always be happy what you got. Are you doing okay? Yeah. Are you paying your bills? Sure. Everybody's eating? Fine. Do you need to grow another 15% every year? At what point is I'm okay at this? And not be like, we've got to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. I get it, because everybody wants to be bigger and bigger and bigger. But there's a time where it's like, you know what, this is okay. We're doing fine. We've got 4 employees. Everybody's doing fine. We're making sales, and we're happy.
Yeah, I like that. That's a unique kind of standpoint from all the kind of conversations about the death of high end, the death of 2-channel, how it's getting a bit older in terms of like the hobby.
Well, everybody's gonna get older and die eventually. That's the way it works. And I see, when we go to shows, I see people walk around in the 30s and 40s, and I bet when I was in my 30s and 40s, if I went to a show, there's people who are in the 50s and 60s like, oh, the industry's dying. Where's all these young people? Yeah. And it's like, I'm right here. And now I'm in their shoes, but I see people coming in with kids, and they're walking around. I don't see it really dying off. As long as there's people who want something and they want that, it's going to be there.
I really love that, because it's almost like symbolic of both of your attitudes, because you guys are really nice, kind people with this very much bright attitude towards it, and I like that slant. I think that...
Well, we're only being nice because it's a podcast. Wait till
No, that's absolutely not true. If you ever go to, we have the privilege of running into these two individuals at an audio show. I highly suggest you flag them down and buy them a drink. They are wonderful people to hang out with.
Well, that's the other reason we're really happy and friendly, because we get a lot of free drinks. So,
But yeah, because it's true that there's a lot of gloom and doom surrounding that, and those people, to your point, might be entirely wrong.
well, look at businesses come and go. I believe it was Class A that just closed up shop.
Yeah.
But companies come and go all the time, and for every Class A that closes, you got someone like Shit Audio. It's like, okay, you guys are killing it. You're making everything here, and you're doing it for prices that run circles around companies that are doing it overseas. So, I think you have to find that market. It's quite possible that the market's changing. More people want products like what Shit Audio does and less like what Class A does. Or, a company's like, would you rather buy a $400 amplifier that sounds great, or a $4,000 amplifier that is the size of a boat anchor that sounds no better but costs 10 times, it's whatever. So I think there needs to be maybe a shift somewhat, that more companies coming up like that are offering less expensive things at a great price.
Yes, so the market's not the same, but at the same time, it's too hard to really aggregate if it's shrinking or growing.
Right.
But
I bet
without a doubt, I agree. It is shifting around.
I'm sure someone could do a marketing thing and find out, how's it changed and so on. I mean, that's there, I'm sure. To me, I don't know if it's really relevant, in a lot of ways, because I don't see it. People say, "Oh, I went to a show and there's less people to show this year than last year." Well, you're just making this casual relationship really quick and assuming it could have been because it was raining. It could have been for other reasons that there's less people this year. I don't know. You'd have to look at overall sales with companies and see what they're doing.
So you guys are, this print magazine with distribution and Tower Records. What kind of happened next?
Well, we brought in some partners who were friends that were already in the industry. I kind of handled the graphics end, the design. Carol handled the circulation. We kind of divvied up what everybody's going to do. And our goal was to do 6 issues a year, with the idea that everything would be reviewed by at least 3 or 4 different people in isolation of each other. And so no one knows what the other person's going to say until it goes to print.
Whoa.
And we did that, and it worked, and everybody loved it. They'd open up, it's like, whoa, there's like four reviews of this one product, and everybody's writing in isolation.
I have to ask, did you have a very positive review and a very negative review of the same product?
Yes, we would have reviews that are super positive, some that were mixed, some that were like, well, I think if that's really what you want, go ahead, kind of, damn with faint praise kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then when that happened, we would have another reviewer read all of them together and then write a potential of why there was this, range of things.
He looked at our systems and, preferences, and then he could say, well, I think Carol thought this because this is what her system tends to sound like. And
I see. So you're saying that the amps wouldn't be the same. The whole chain wasn't the same. If it was a speaker, for instance, you would be putting it on your own system.
So it's like that preamp went to 4 different reviewers. Okay. And they got to play with it, review it, listen to it for X number of weeks, write their thing. And none of them really knew it until we would go to print. And if I would look at that and go, geez, 3 yays, 1 nay, why is there that 1 nay?
How often is the magazine coming out at this time?
Our goal is to do six issues.
So you did this process 6 times every 2 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
And which meant you had to move.
Oh, yeah.
You had to get it in and out really quick. The issue was that, one, this is the way print is. You want to print? How many pages you got? You want that many pages? You need the advertising dollars. You don't have the advertising dollars? You don't have that many pages. So we would lay it out based on, okay, we've got 6 ads. That gives us this much money to print.
Wow.
This many pages and this many copies.
So you're saying the advertising sales exactly dictated per a formula?
For sure, because
How
we weren't
deep it went.
we weren't pulling any money out. We weren't paying anybody other than just to cover our costs. So every partner in the magazine put in, I think, about $400 or $500 individually, just to give it like, here's our start money, here's our seed money, and with that we went, and then we had to have enough advertising to cover the cost to print each issue. So the first year we did 6 issues. Next year we only did 4. Next year we only did 3. And the last year it's kind of like, all right, if we get a couple issues out this year, because things had changed. You know, all of a sudden people got kids. It's hard to get the gear that quickly to everybody. You know, instead of doing 4 reviews per thing, sometimes it's only 3, sometimes it's 2. And at that point, I'd been going up to VSAC, which is this little show way up in Puget Sound, and I'd met David, and David Robinson of Positive Feedback, and he was doing the magazine, print magazine, Positive Feedback. So we'd met a couple times, and we had a lot of mutual friends in the industry, and I'm on the phone with our partners and kind of like, you know, we just need to go online. This is like killing us. We could be going online. It could be dynamic, and it's going to be fast. It's going to be timely. We don't need it. Costs, overheads are almost nil. You know, we could do this. And they're all like, oh, there's no money in going online. All the money's in print. You know, we got to stick with this. We're going to, I'm like, but we're only like, now we're doing maybe 2 issues a year. And I talked to a friend, mutual friend of mine and David's, and he's like, oh, I just got off the phone with David Robinson. He feels the same as you. And within an hour, David called me. We worked out an LLC on the phone in 90 minutes. Went online, I don't know, about 6 weeks later, merged the 2 magazines with the same philosophy, but just kind of brought the 2 together and never looked back. And that was 15 years ago, roughly. And at that time, I think we were doing, we were happy if we got 40,000 readers a month, We're like, oh my God, and then when we broke 100,000, and I was doing all the HTML. So I'm doing all this. Carol had already done HTML, so she's helping me, and we're doing all this from scratch. And we tried to make it look as good as we could, but it's kind of like, it was Web 1.0. Yeah. And I kind of got stuck in Web 1.0 for about 12 years until we were able to switch to Web 3.0 and with our new version of the magazine. And so, every time we'd like, 70,000, 100,000. And today we're a little over 400,000 unique readers a month. So, and we see that still growing. It's still like every month it kind of a little bit more.
And if I could interject, I'd like to point out that on Positive Feedback, we have a category called New Old Stock, and you can go and see some of those original articles that we had originally in print from both Audio Musings and Positive Feedback.
So we're pulling that old content out, and every month we'll put up 1 or 2 articles from 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago.
I really want to see one of those 6-way shootouts.
There's a few up there.
Are there?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the issue previous to the one that we just put up at the beginning of November, there's one with 4 versions of, I can't remember the product, but I have a review.
I think it's the Blue Circle preamp.
I think it was, yeah.
But what's hard is when you pull those old articles out, it's like links to companies that don't exist and references to things are like, what the hell is that? And so it's, we always kind of have a caveat there that it's like, okay, don't click on this link because that company's long gone. So in many cases, I try to remove all that stuff, and it's just, here's the content. Trying to find pictures of stuff from back then and is fun too. But it's kind of like this, back to the past.
Yeah. It's really not that long ago either, right? I mean, we're looking at even the 2000 is 17 years ago. in 2000, it wasn't like the Stone Ages, right? We had.
Well,
The web was
no, the web was there.
Up
I mean,
and charging.
everybody started with TAN, the Audiophile Network, and that's where a lot of these people started off on the internet. But it was, I remember back then when we were doing this, it was dial-up,
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's like, okay, we got to make it, and when I take stuff, to the printers, it's all on zip drives and zip files.
Oh yeah,
and,
those big blue ones, right?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, just the other day or a couple months ago, I was cleaning out the garage. And it's like, oh, here's my zip files and all my drives and stuff. It's like, what do I have this stuff for?
Oh man, I remember that was like the big when I was studying graphic design. It was like, oh, the big blue drive, big blue zip thing.
Yeah.
And I remember when the iPod came out, they're like, you can put it on there too.
Yeah.
And you're like, no way.
Yeah.
But those guys, those early ones, they failed because there's a spinning drive inside the portable thing.
Right,
That's not a good formula
For sure.
for longevity. So
So that kind of takes us up to where we are today. So, the magazine's gone, Positive Feedback has gone through some major changes as far as the look and how it's ran. And, we moved to, from doing everything HTML to moving everything to more or less a WordPress type format, even though most of our site is custom coded from existing WordPress. And, because there's things we wanted to do that's like, well, okay, we've got to figure out how to do that. And, it's become a new thing because like we find issues all the time. Even with today, it's like, what just happened? And, we'll talk to our web guy because this is all way past me now. And ask me to do, WordPress or anything that's not HTML. It's like, it's a foreign language to me. I can look at it, start to figure it out, but after a while, it's like, I would pay someone else to do this.
I think that the foibles with WordPress that have come up just from my experience with it in the past couple of years, it's a podcast all of its own. There was an update that came down through the pipe that essentially crashed every single WordPress owner I know at nearly the same time, or just came to a screeching slow delivery. And I was like, I thought it was unique to me. I checked around, every single person had it. That's like a big.
Well, we haven't had that yet. I mean, when we do any updates to the site, either to WordPress or any of the widgets or whatever else that's running on the site, we run everything on a sandbox, isolate everything, everything's tested. We go through the whole site on a sandbox and see if there's anything that's pointing at us or raising its head, and we'll find things, and we're either able to remedy it or find another workaround. And so our site has only crashed once, but it was due to something else. I mean, we've been hacked. People have hacked into our site to do stuff. So I don't know if that's like, hey, we're big enough that people want to hack us, but there's nothing to take. I mean, there's nothing there other than just content. But so we've had to deal with that and deal with people trying to come in through the back end and get information or whatever. So it's just sadly it's the world we live in.
Yeah, and and on that same kind of tone, the stories that come out of the retailers are pretty harsh sometimes. There's been at least one that I know of that. I just asked him at a show. I was like, well, how is it going? And he's like, well, we had a hack this year. And, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, it's pretty bad news. But he when he elaborated, he was like, no, they got in. Money was lost enough to the point where it took quite a struggle for them to dig back out. Like, it was a very, very serious breach when the money's involved, when there's credit cards on there and the trust with your consumers and this and that. So it's a serious thing because I think unfortunately the smaller guys are targets because they can't afford this like super high security, and these guys know it. So.
Well, I mean, none of that's that difficult. Our site's now HTTPS. We're running all kinds of security stuff on it, protocols, probably way more than we need to, because if anybody hacks into us, what are they going to do? They're going to, change a title,
So Dave and Carol and I all go to these audio shows and report on the news, so to speak, and I see them around a lot. And one of the things I kind of want to ask you, Dave, is occasionally when we're at a show, usually from my experience, a speaker company will kind of just show up out of nowhere. I would never heard of them before. They're brand new. And it kind of appears, it could be from a certain angle, that these people are, I took a box, put a speaker in it, and was like, boom, $20,000. I'm going to make a quick buck. Do you kind of feel that's how it is, or have you seen otherwise?
No, I would disagree with that. What we tend to see is you walk into a room and someone's built this massive box. It's the size of a, small car, and I'm like, okay, and it's $80,000, and no one's ever heard of you. And I hate to tell you, but it's not the most attractive box I've seen. It may sound great, but I mean, how many of these are you really going to sell? I mean, you should start small and build up and come with that big box, and when you've established yourself. Are there scam artists out there? There's scam artists in everything. That's just the reality of life. I think at most audio shows, I think personally in the audio industry, it's too small to scam people, because you're just not going to be around. You're going to scam someone for 30 days, but the industry is so small, everybody kind of knows everybody. And if you're a new guy coming in, you really need to have your feet on the ground and be honest and upfront about what you're doing. People may question your product or question your philosophy or whatever, but you really got to deliver, or you're just not going to be around. There's the white van guys, there's all that, but I don't really think that's so much the high-end audio. The sad reality for us is, having done shows for 20 some odd years now, CS and all the regional shows, is we see too many people coming in the industry that simply, they have a great idea, or they have an idea, but they don't know how to market it.
Yeah.
And, it's like they're an engineer or something, and you walk in the room and they don't even get up and they don't even say hello. And you're like, hi, I'm here to report. What do you got? And like, huh? Oh, yeah. What do you want to hear? And I'm like, okay, no, let's start over again. Okay. Yeah. You're here to sell this. You're here to sell your company. You got to have, and if you can't do it, then find someone who can, because ultimately you've got this one chance. People are going to walk in your room, and if they're not blown away, they're not impressed, you don't engage them in some way, you don't have a marketing plan other than the fact that you're at the show, and do you have any products for review? No, I just got that one pair.
That's it.
You're
looking at our product line.
Well, I can't send them out for review, or, I'm like, okay, you're what? You're just hoping to sell this one pair at the show, or get orders for 15 pairs, and then wait. People have to wait 6 months to get something. That's not going to work. You really need to come in ready to go.
I'm always kind of, there are really, really smart people out there, and I think of all the professions, engineering is a tough one. The math, 4 years of whatever, infinite numbers. It wasn't what I took, but I'm always surprised on, no matter how great of an engineer you are, the marketing profession is different. And if you're a really smart engineer, that does not always equate to you a really great marketer.
Right.
Because it's especially apparent in this particular atmosphere, because the engineers dominate the company. Like, I'm an engineer, I made this product, now I'm going to bring it to forward, and the break is like seems to be obvious in this particular market, because that happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And then you sit down and talk with them, and they're like, I know what everybody wants. Based on what? Have you done any surveys? Yeah. You're making this product. How do you know everybody wants that product? Well, it's the product I want to sell to everybody. And so therefore everybody should want my product, because my product does all this other stuff. And I can see that. I get it. You're committed to your product, and that's great. You should be. But ultimately, you should be thinking, all right, so if I want to make this, who are my customers? And if my customers, obviously the more expensive your product is, that market gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But then again, because it's so expensive, you don't have to sell as many.
Yeah, it's like the marketing research of one, the
Yeah,
audience
yeah.
of one.
Yeah, if
Focus
I could
group.
just sell that one $10 million speaker, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. But, to go along with that, Carol and I have gone to shows for so long, and we've got to meet so many people that for us nowadays, when we go to shows, yeah, we want to cover, the show and do the best we can. And our approach is certainly different than what you do. You go in the rooms and you write extended, reports and all this stuff. And Carol and I at our advanced age is, we kind of like hit the ground and like, okay. And
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, they're both, I think your age combined is around 200, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, 200 squared. Yeah. But no, I mean, I'm 62. Carol's 59, soon to be 59. But it's, the older you get, the harder this is. And when you go to a show like say Rocky Mountain, for example, that's got 140, 150 rooms, and you sit down and think, all right, so we've got 3 days. I've got to do 50 rooms a day at least.
Yeah.
And to give the show its fair shake, because they deserve that. You can't just go into the rooms you like and like, oh, there's 6 people here I like, I'm just going to go to 6 rooms and forget everybody else. When you visit all these rooms, our approach has always been like, okay, what's in the room? Go in, shoot it, and quick listen, and we got to get to the next room. And, the rooms that stand out would be those rooms that we'd come back to on a Sunday, because we realize, okay, we can't just spread this out over 3 days and never get to sit. And if we try to sit, then we will really get to everybody. And what if on Sunday it's like, okay, we've missed 2 floors and we don't have time. So we kind of kill ourselves the first 2. And so our show reports tend to be more of a, photo essay of all things. And, and I applaud the people that can send 6 people to cover a show, and all right, you're going to do speakers and you're going to do digital, and it makes it easier because they can sit and spend more time. But for us, back to the point is, today when we go to shows, it's all about seeing friends and people in the industry and hanging out after the show and having drinks and dinner and, trying to get lunch or breakfast. And because for us, it's like a big family. It's a community. And, we've made amazing friends in the industry, that many that are, very dear to our heart.
Do you?
Like Sean Casey.
I was going to say, Sean Casey's a great man. For those of you guys... He is. It's not just the sound. He tends to throw a very exciting, interesting room filled with fun atmosphere.
Yeah.
I did want to. I'm not playing favorites, but saying he's always the best sound at every show. I'm just saying that if you go in there and he's different, he's unique in this
Sean
atmosphere.
will have a whole DJ set up.
Yeah.
He's going to play the music he likes. He's going to have someone playing the music they like. He's not going to sit there and play the audiophile type stuff unless someone requests that and they can play it. Our stories with Sean and, at the time, Adam, when he was involved with the company. I don't believe he still is. But Sean, we met Sean at CES, I believe, one year when he just started the company. And it just kind of, friendship grew to the point where it's like, hey, Dave, I'm coming into LA to hit a couple dealers. Can we crash on your floor?
Yeah.
And so they'd just show up, and Adam would go for the couch in the back, and Sean would just throw a sleeping bag on the living room floor, and he and I would stay up late and listen to music, and I'd put on stuff and he'd put on stuff, and we just had great times. And that's, I think Sean was probably in his 20s, and he's just recently married, and the company was just starting off, and those were the good times. That's probably 20 years ago.
I think what he told me once, one of his dirty little secrets, was that he sleeps in the showroom.
He
not always, but back in the day, like you're saying, when they first started out,
why not?
You have to pay for the room. They would sleep in the room and clean it up afterwards.
Yeah,
I love
not?
that, dude. That's like, guys, we're doing what it takes to make it happen.
It's like, so a couple sleeping bags on the floor. Who's going to know?
Yeah.
Why should I get another whole room? I already have a room, and at night this room is empty, so I might as well just sleep in here.
Yeah. So you obviously met a lot of fun characters over the years. Without playing too much favorites, do you have like a top 3 people that you just adore in the industry? Who's the best writer? I think aside from Brian Hunter, I know that's where you're gonna go. I saw it on his lips. I saw.
I can't sit there and say there's three. I mean, I go to shows. I'm always happy to see somebody. I mean, I know once.
Let's get to the dirt. Anybody you avoid?
No. No. I can't say that, even if I will say that one
That's
year.
for a couple of bourbons later. I
Right.
think.
No, but honestly, no, there's no one we would avoid. There's a number. I mean, you can't narrow it down to three.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of people we look forward to
Yeah,
seeing.
and sometimes to the point that it actually gets us in trouble. At Rocky Mountain one year, I saw John Atkinson, and I walked up to him really quick, and I gave him a hug. And everybody kind of, you could feel like the air leaving the room, and everybody stood back, and I'm like, what? And they go, John doesn't like to be hugged. Don't hug John. But he's, what?
I probably shouldn't tell this story, but when I first started doing this, and I wasn't as well known as perhaps I am now, I had a game I would play, and it's how many times at any show am I getting kicked out of the sweet spot for John Atkins? And now this is not John Atkins' fault. This is the room organizers'
And
fault.
that's fine. I get it. I don't have any problem.
But
being
it
kicked out.
would be like, he's coming. Whispers. Everybody like, and then they like, sir, you need to get out of that space.
Yeah.
John's sitting there.
Yeah.
And John would be horrified.
Right, because
But it would happen
he's such a sweet, humble guy.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
Thankfully, some of those same people now clear the spot for me.
Right.
But I don't take any pride in it. But I'm not as humble as John either. I always look at the person like, you out.
Yeah. Well,
That's a joke. I'm
Caroline
just kidding.
had a philosophy years back that it would be that if anybody were to walk up to us at a show or in an elevator or whatever and go, oh my God, it's Dave and Carol Clark, we'd be like, I'm out of the industry. That's not what it's about. It's not about me. I don't mind people walk up and saying, hey, love reading your magazine. I like that article. That's fine. But, we have no pretense. And when you ask, like, people who I respect and I love to read, their writing, it's anybody but me. I'm a hack writer. I mean, I sit down and the stuff just comes out. And Carol will come over to edit it, and she's like, what the hell are you trying to say here? You just wrote a paragraph with no commas and no periods. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the way I'm thinking. And so she spends time editing it. And, sometimes my stuff is good and sometimes it's not. And sometimes, inspiration takes over and things happen. And that's just the life of a writer. But I don't have any pretense that I am a writer in any sense of the word. So if people like what I write, that's sweet. That's, I appreciate that. But I'm not doing this to win any awards or anything. So when I read like stuff like Art Dudley, I'm like, how does this guy do this? His stuff is just amazingly well written.
Yeah, there is a couple of writers that I feel honored to be among in this group. Really good writers, and when I see those writers, sometimes I'm like, you should really write a book. Like your writing style is just absolutely captivating, and that is kind of what drew me to the hobby early on. But it's funny you say that because I actually am a complete nerd, and when I first met both John Darko. So for the guys,
John's a great writer.
Yeah, John is a great writer, but he's also physically very tall,
very imposing.
And I saw him from a distance, and I think I spotted his name tag. So I was like, oh my goodness, that's him. And I'm like, John Darko. And I got up to him, and I realized I'm a 6 foot tall myself. I was looking up to him. I was totally, not really. It's not starstruck because you never seen his face before, but it was definitely like, oh, I'm in the presence of greatness.
Right. Speaking of height, we should probably put together a basketball team of people in the industry. So I'm going with, I'll go with John first.
At first, yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe...
yeah, that's everybody else is anybody else tall?
Yeah.
No, I have to go with Scott's
John DeVore.
Oh, John DeVore.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's 2.
That's 2. Well, that's all you need. Okay, so it's 2 on 2.
We're playing 2. We're playing 2 on 2. They work.
2 on 2.
Oh yeah. No, I would say that there's not the tallest group. I mean, when I'm at a show, I generally kind of see over the crowd. Now,
right.
I used to have a friend that would take me to down in Long Beach, actually near the pier, Asian dance clubs.
Right.
Or what they would call down there like Asian night. We're all there. And I would go with one other gentleman that was 6 foot tall, and we could see each other across the club at any time. It's not like that, but it's kind of like
it's kind of like that. But speaking of personalities, when you read someone's writing, their writing pretty much reflects them when you meet them in person. They're witty, they're fun, they have a good time. And then you meet some of the people that are like, kind of dry and no humor, and you read their stuff. It's kind of dry with no humor. It's just, here's the facts, here's the bullets, done, done, done. I liked it, I didn't like it, move on. So I like reading stuff that's fun. I like to be entertained. I'm not reading it necessarily for information, mainly because I know what I like sound-wise, and I know what a lot of other people like sound-wise because you read the writing, and I know that we probably would not like the same thing, or we don't like the same thing just based on what I've read about what they like. And so for me, it's reading more for entertainment. Carol and I are pretty much set in what we want things to sound like at home. Which kind of goes into like, what should things sound like? And I think things should sound like what you want them to sound like, because you have no idea what it should sound like. You don't know what that CD or LP should sound like.
So you do kind of shy away from the concept of like there is an absolute sound, an absolute reference?
I completely shy away from that. As a matter of fact, the whole philosophy of our magazine is there is no such thing as an absolute sound. The only thing that's absolute is your interpretation, your time that you were there, what you heard. So if you went to a live event and you sat in the 5th row in the center and you felt, whatever your body was like and your mental state and whatever, and the atmosphere in the room and who was sitting around you, and then you come back 2 nights later, you sit 10 rows further back, it's not going to sound the same in different people, even if you sat in the same place. So for me, there is no such thing as an absolute sound. I don't know what my music should sound like at home. I wasn't there. I wasn't there when they recorded it. And even if I was there when they recorded it, what the recording engineer hears is going to change to the mastering engineer, which is going to change when they press it. And is it good pressing or not? So, and then when you play it back, it's going to sound different on this system versus that system. So ultimately, what should it sound like? It should sound like, if you're happy and you like it, then that's it. That's, don't keep chasing your tail. Find like, I like the way this sounds, and I like what these speakers do with my music, and I like what that amp does with these speakers with my music, and I can add this to change a little bit of that and get more of this, and season things as, to make things kind of pop or whatever. It's just finding that synergy and that happiness for you and your music.
So you had mentioned the term synergy. Do you think that there's a real kind of...
I think the synergy comes with you and the way you react, the way everything's put together.
What about in between components? Do you think, this component A sounds good, is really good by itself. This component B sounds really good by itself. Is it possible for that equation to be not good sound, or the inverse is one good and one bad, but together they sound good? That type of synergy. Do you believe in that?
I think all that is possible.
It is possible.
Yeah, and I think you could have 2 bad things and then put them together, and hey, they found a happy place. It's the thing that bothers me is when people come to my house and I pull out something that they know and I play it and they look at me and go, "It shouldn't sound like that. That's wrong." And I'm like, "What do you mean it shouldn't sound like that?" "Well, at my house it sounds more like this." I'm like, "Okay, but I could take it to 6 different homes and it could sound 6 different ways. So which one's right?" "Well, the one that's right is the one that you like. And if you like the way it sounds at your house, then that's the way it should sound for you." But you should be able to sit back and find an appreciation for what these other 5 people are doing. And like, okay, I see what you're doing. You want more out into the room. At my house, I don't like out in the room. I like laid back. Okay. But that doesn't mean laid back is right and out into the room is wrong. It's like, I want more salt on my food. I don't like salt on my food. I like really spicy food. I don't like spicy food. I like this. I don't like that. I like Northern Thai. I like Southern Thai. It's not one is right or wrong. They're both right.
What is your take on the kind of Harman curve concept? So I'm not sure if you're familiar, but actually, right, kind of in this LA area, Harman Kardon has a big research facility head up by Sean Olive, I think is his name. And they've been working on this Harman curve, which is basically the sum of a large amount of research that says most people like this. There's a little bit of boost in the bass, and it does this kind of thing. And they shoot for that curve when they tune their instrument. When they tune their speakers. They also have kind of reciprocated that with their earphones that they're researching right now, this project.
Okay.
Now, it's not the same sociological concept you're talking about with the absolute sign, but he's kind of taking all the research that he has and saying, this is a basic frequency response that most people find enjoyable. Do you think that there's some meat to that?
Well, obviously, and if it sells, and then you have the proof right there.
Yeah.
You know, if their sales are working and people like it and go for it, fine. All they're doing is coloring the sound of the speaker to meet the needs or wants of most people who are going to buy their stuff. And, you know, that's no different than McDonald's or any restaurant or whatever saying, this is the way we make it because that's what most people seem to want, you know. You know, I have no problem with that as long as you know that that's what they're doing. Or I don't know, maybe if you didn't even know and you're still happy, it doesn't really matter. You know, in the end, to me, it's all about when you sit down and you listen to music, are you happy? And you're not sitting there like this, I don't like the way this sounds. Okay, then, you know, and I don't like, not that I don't like this one recording, because that in itself that's the thing about positive feedback. We see it like, all right, the musician is an art, playing music is an art, recording it is an art, mastering it is an art, playing it back in your house with all that stuff is an art. And you're trying to get all those arts to work for you. And it's like art, you can walk into a gallery and someone's like, that's the crappiest thing I've ever seen. And other people are like, that's the most amazing painting I've ever seen. So, you know, it's how you interpret it and what you appreciate. And there's no right or wrong to any of that. I mean, you may disagree. You may look at someone and go, I don't know how you could ever like that. But if they do, there you go. You know, you can try to educate them maybe why they shouldn't like it. You can expose them to things that you think are maybe better. And who knows, you might be able to change their mind. Or they're just like, okay, great. Yeah, I get it, but I still like that. And, well, okay. They're happy. Doesn't hurt me. You know, just follow your own dream.
One of the audiophile conversations, as I've been told, is the PR term, debates, you could say, among audiophiles is the influence or the changes in like interconnect cables. Do you think that interconnect cables make a difference?
Yeah, I think everything makes a difference. Some things make a bigger difference than other things. I mean, for sure, different cables at home, I've been able to do that and prove it with other people. You know, blind tests and change things.
What about a power cable?
And power cables.
Wow.
Matter of fact, the funniest thing we ever did is a long time ago at one of the audio meetings. We were doing a demonstration on some room treatment things that you put in the corner behind the speakers.
Were they the little bell things?
No,
upside down?
no. These were, you know, I had the little bell things. And
they were around for a while.
They worked.
People had them.
Yeah. So we had these room treatment things in the corners behind the speakers, and everybody's like, "Oh, it sounds so great." And I said, "Okay, out of curiosity, let's just take them out, listen to it again." And everybody's like, "No, it's boomy. You know, it's kind of doesn't sound as good." So I asked two of the people in the room who were, you know, 6 feet tall and a couple 100 pounds, if they would just humor me for a minute and go stand in the corners where the things were. And everybody's like, it sounds so great. I'm like, okay, so putting something large in the corner to break up the sound works. Whether it's, you're not going to have your friends stand there all the time because that's just going to be a little awkward. But, you know, obviously room treatments and stuff, doing stuff like that does make a difference. You may not like it. You may not appreciate it. But it does change the sound. And so that's kind of the way I feel about most things. It does change the sound. You may not like it. You may not appreciate it in the sense that maybe you don't respond to it or it's not important to you what it does. But I feel that a lot of things will change the sound in some way, to some degree, to some significance.
Yeah, and on that note too, I think the bigger kind of impact to people who run websites like you and myself is that the negative reaction to that in the comment section on a lot of things is just so immense to people who feel like they're actually on some type of savior crusade. I think.
Yeah, I'm out here to save you because this can't do what you think it does, and you're being fooled, and you're part of the scam.
The conspiracy.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, or, well, all that cable's doing is it's passing ones and zeros. I'm like, so what do you think? If you open up the cable, ones and zeros are going to fall out? It's an electrical signal, which means it's an electrical signal that is susceptible to whatever can affect an electrical signal in some way. And to assume that it cannot be affected in some way is to be rather naive. I mean, I get it. There's all kinds of research that says it can't happen. But then if you sit down and experience it, then where do you put that? Are you just fooling yourself? A lot of people seem to be fooling themselves. And even when it's a blind test, they're being fooled. So, I get it. If it doesn't work for you, that goes back to my point. If it doesn't matter to you and you don't hear a difference, then don't worry about it. But if other people do, let them go do what they want. It's not hurting you.
Yeah, and the thing that always kind of gets me is I've seen these kind of comments and these savior type things going on in areas where the person had to dig, like they took time out of their day to go deep into the web to find a very specific website that specializes one thing to go say what everything about this site is hogwash. And I guess I don't understand the mentality of that person, because if they're not interested, if they think it's hogwash, then what are they doing contributing to the community, or what are they doing with their time where they're just go around to, because would you go on a bike site and be like, this bike product is complete hogwash? Or
I found
watches,
one article,
watches, like the watches are $10,000, but the same argument, like they all just tell time.
Well,
exactly
and
the same.
cars all get you from A to B. So why do we have so many different versions of cars? It's in the end, it's just A to B. So why should I spend $200,000 on a car when I could spend $15,000 on a car and buy the very basic car? Well, it's all this other stuff, and I get that. I recently wrote an article about the Antipodes. New music servers, renderers are out there. And I knew that people were going to jump on that and say, they're just overpriced Intel NUCs. That's all they are. It's just a computer. So I can go out and buy an Intel NUC with an Intel i7 processor and all this stuff and do whatever I want for $1,000. And they're selling this thing for $6,000. They're ripping you off. And my response was, okay, you need to think of it more like it's a race car. They built this thing from the ground up. It's not off-the-shelf parts. Yeah, there is an Intel processor in there, but custom motherboard, special, they're sourcing everything and building it from the ground up. And how many of these things are they going to sell? 50, 100? So the cost simply goes up because it's supply and demand. It's, being able to price parts, Intel's buying how many parts for their NUCs versus Antipodes, how many parts are they buying? So now you're looking at specialized products, and because they're so specialized and limited production, the cost is going to be what it's going to be, and that's just the way it is. And if you don't want to spend that and you can't appreciate what they've done, then go out and buy something, get your USB cable that came with your printer and you're happy, Just go with that.
Did you guys want to kind of talk about your other art projects? Did you want to talk about your tables?
Well, so I brought up the point that Carol edits our stuff because most people don't know this, but she's a published author. So she's written 3 novels that have been published, and she gets royalty checks, and she taught English for many years as a teacher. And so her background is basically doing, writing and how to write and how to make sense of stuff. Obviously, when people write, there's a writing style. everybody has their voice, and when you edit stuff, you want to kind of keep that. So that's why we appreciate what she does in the end. That for a lot of people, it's like, okay, this guy's kind of simple and plain and not a great read, but that's him. That's who that guy is. But it's grammatically correct, and its sentences are complete, and so on. Other than doing the magazine, by the way, Carol and I both retired as public school teachers a little over a year and a half ago. So the magazine now, is a bigger part of our time because we have more time to devote to it. But I also, since I retired, returned back to my art, which is making dysfunctional, functional tables that are more sculptural and less of a table, but you can still use them as a table. So I'm having fun doing that. Some shows here and there. I was doing this when we first got married and selling it through design centers to the trade, and not, design center would sell it to a designer who would sell it to a customer, client. And I was like the manufacturer. So I'm kind of returned to that. My sales, I'm just selling for anybody that wants one. I've sold 2 pieces. Michael Lavorne from Stereophile bought a table, and David Cope bought a table. So they are my support right now.
Is there something specific about the table that draws you to it that you like to work on that medium?
I like a creative output. And when we're doing the magazine in print, I really pushed what I could do graphic-wise, and mixtures of fonts and shapes and patterns and styles and stuff like that. So that was a big artistic outlet. And before that is when I was doing constructions and stuff and exhibiting some galleries here and there. And then the magazine became my art outlet, and then teaching became my outlet that was my creativity, how to be as creative as a teacher as I could be. And when we retired from that, the furniture became kind of like, because the site is now more or less, it's on its own path. Look and feel doesn't really change much. We kind of look at some stuff and it's like, oh, let's change this, or let's change the font, go to that. I like this font better, and we're just, so that's just little stuff. But the tables now allow me to all right, I can go out to my studio and, stream music out there and just blast it out there. And I've got a nice audio system in the garage and one on the patio where I do a lot of my work out on the driveway. And it's just fun. And I'm not doing it for the money. If it sells, great. The only problem is I'm up to 42 tables, and most of them are sitting in our garage or in our house. So it's kind of like, okay, none of them are that big. Some are only 6 inches by 6 inches. They're small, in width. They're 2 feet tall, but
Is there something specific about the table though? Like, why not a chair, or
because
why not
chairs are too hard.
Oh,
Tables are much easier.
in what sense?
Well, a table just has to stand and hold a glass. A chair actually has to hold, hundreds of pounds.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, and so
Do you have a want to do work with stone or these other types of things?
I just like to work with different mediums, and I kind of change stuff.
Well, I know that the texture and what you do with that table is vastly creative. There's a bunch of I've seen some of his pieces.
I'm
in
moving now towards tables that are less of a table and more of an open storybook for you.
I love the openness of it.
Yeah,
It's it's a table in name only.
Yeah, it's a table in name only, and I'm creating little vignettes on them, and with little miniature things.
Oh my goodness.
And the series is called I'm Listening, Tell Me More. And so we just had a show in Long Beach where I made 18 identical tables. They're kind of like a 50s Jetson modern kind of thing, and gave them to, myself included, 18 different artists as their canvas. And the show was great. I mean, the tables are amazingly creative. But I kept mine kind of 50s sci-fi monster thing kind of going on with it. And on the surface, there's a couple little park benches that are no more than maybe 1/4 inch tall and 1 inch long. And that's it. And so people look at it and go, well, what's going on? I go, I don't know. You tell me. And they're like, well, maybe it's a park. I go, okay. it could be a park. What else? Anything else? Yeah, but look what's inside. What's going on in there? Like, so I'm
I
doing.
see the shame of an angry father.
Yeah, so I'm doing a series now of these tables that have an open-ended story of what's really going on, and I'm working on 4 of them at home now, but they should be done in a week or so.
I just want to thank Dave and Carol for stopping by. Dave, if someone wants to find your artwork, your table work, where is the best place for them to find it?
So you can find, I have a website, www.daverclarkdesigns.com, and there's an Instagram of Dave R. Clark 55 on Instagram. You can follow me as well. And then, obviously the magazine, the positive feedback is, www.positive-feedback.com.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming by. Appreciate it.
Thank you.